Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. If you're new to the live show, this is basically my background noise generator. Typically, guys are listening to this while they're doing something else. So, an opportunity to hang out. We are in the shop. We are working on GSXR 750. Wanted to take a break, hang out with you guys for a minute, let y'all know what I am up to on this thing. Give you guys some updates as far as what to expect coming along with this 750. And that's kind of it. A bit of a short show tonight. Got a lot going on, so I'm going to have to get back to work pretty soon. But what are y'all up to? Want to check in and go from there. So I will be uploading a video, just an update video as far as what all is going on with this bike. I'm going to be illustrating a bit of an onboarding process that I do with these motorcycles whenever I bring them on board, whether it's a new bike, used bike, whatever the case is. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be chatting about. Let's see what's going on with this camera over here. Got some kind of funk going on. All right, there we go. Oh, that was just me. Huh? Anyway, getting back to it. Yeah, quite a bit going on with the 750. Still waiting on tires, but as soon as they show up, we'll be getting those things on this bike. Looks like we've got about another 2 or 3 days left. So in the meantime, we're going to be getting these mirrors off of the bike. Already got the fender off of the bike. And discovering the differences between a California bike and a 49 state bike. That's been kind of fun. I'm going to put together a video that illustrates that really, really in depth for you guys. Also, we're going to have, let me scoot this back a little bit. Oh, and like I said, we've got some upcoming mods, basically just kind of getting the bike ready for it. But let me check in with you guys. Get in here. Hang on just a second. What is going on with this? Here we go. I think I was locked out of my own chat. We are live. Season. Good seeing you. So, yeah, so far, listen, it's been a bit of a short affair with the 750, what with that flat tire. It looks like the tires, again, should be in just a few days. We'll be able to get this thing back on the road. But in the meantime, still quite a bit to do. And I'm looking forward to bringing this bike kind of up a little bit, trying to elevate its look, elevate its game. Y'all know I'm not a huge fan of mirrors, so we're going to go with those block offs with the integrated LEDs. We've got the LED flasher, you know, that the relay for the blinkers is coming. And the good thing is that, you know, the tail tidy is just, you know, you just bolt it up because there's no lights or anything like that because they're all integrated into the tail on these bikes. So, yeah, as far as that goes, that's where we're at with this thing. But the main thing I wanted to ask you guys is, any bikes at EICMA? Look, we're just coming off of EICMA. A lot of bikes were revealed. A lot of, you know, all the secrets were unveiled. Anything that you saw that you liked, anything that you're a little bit disappointed with? I got to tell you, you know, listen, there were a couple of things that I had thought that we were going to see at EICMA this year. One of those things was I thought that there was maybe going to be some kind of chat about the Suzuki middleweights. Was there going to be some kind of an update? Was there going to be some kind of a refresh, at least, for these bikes? And that does not look like it's going to be the case. Matter of fact, recently, well, this past weekend, I did a demo day, a Suzuki demo day at Stubb Cycles. Huge shout out to Hunter, Tommy, and the rest of the gang. And the crew over at Suzuki. And I was able to talk to those guys for a hot minute. And I asked them, look, what's the deal with these middleweights? Is there ever going to be an update for this bike? Or does it even need it? And realistically, the guy could have said, look, you know, we don't know. We don't pay attention to that. Whatever, it is what it is. But the guy was pretty honest with me. He said, look, if it does happen, everybody is going to find out at the same time because they can't afford any leaks if it were to happen. He said, look at it like this. Suzuki makes every GSXR 600 for outside of the European market, right? And the problem is that they still sell every GSXR 600 they make. The GSXR 750, the same. They sell every single one of the bikes that they make. And so because of that, there's just not going to be any incentive for them to make any real changes to the lineup because, well, the people that buy the bikes either don't want or don't expect any changes. And the markets where they would probably appreciate the bike the most, the bike would have to be changed too much to meet that market demand. So I guess there's something just to be said for, look, the bike is what it is. The people that buy it like the nostalgia of it. They like the performance of it, and they're not going to accept anything any differently. Sam saying, I'm disappointed there's no rotary bikes. There are rotary bikes. In fact, back in the 70s, early 80s, there were a couple of rotary motorcycles. The problem with the rotary engine, it works out great in a bike, by the way. Rotary engines were kind of the hotness there for a hot minute for small vehicles, right? But the problem with a rotary engine is there's a bit of a misnomer with those engines. It's like, for example, let's say the very common 1.3 liter. A 1.3 liter is really a 3.9 liter if you think about it. If you measure the displacement the way that you measure a V engine or an inline engine, a piston engine, you have three lobes, but you only are measuring the combustion volume of one lobe. And that's really not a fair comparison. There's a lot of folks that'll look into rotaries and go, it's only 1.3 liters and it makes all this power. Well, the problem is there's a lot of problems with rotary engines, and it's very difficult to get them to work properly. And a lot of guys go, well, it's the seals. You just have to, these modern seals are a lot better. The modern seals are a lot better, but there's one thing that you cannot do, or that is very difficult to do with a rotary, and that is heat management. And when it comes to heat, it's not like the thing just gets hot. It's that you have a solid case. Like, imagine this jug of oil is the solid case, and you've got your rotary going around in here. Every time that rotary goes around, this side of the case is very hot because the case is part of the exhaust on that engine. This side presumably is very cool, right? So the hot stays hot, the cool stays cool. And the problem with that is you get case warpage. Now, you can engineer a lot of that out, but the issue is that you still have a certain amount of expansion on one side of that case. That adds to some of the inefficiency, some of the blow-by issues that those engines have. Realistically, you have to think of a rotary like a two-stroke, and the efficiencies there are just not all that great. They're not power dense necessarily for their displacement. Again, there's a lot of folks that would say, no, it's really a 3.9, not a 1.3. But the other side to it, it's just that it's difficult to get a lot of efficiency out of a rotary engine for a broad power band. They're typically focused within a very narrow power band. That's why a lot of folks go, it's just a rotary two-stroke. So that's one of the reasons why manufacturers never really stuck to that engine design. It's just that it's not as efficient as a power to weight type of an engine. Sniper saying, Professor B, what is up? Modern Muscles in, what is up? Saying, what about small V8 bikes? I've seen one-off custom V8 bikes, but they are huge. Yes, almost nothing about bikes or their history compared to muscle cars. Oh, got the ball guy with the flex. So here's the thing. The reason why no V8 bikes is because it's not an efficient use of space. The idea with a motorcycle, you got to remember, is that it is a much smaller configuration, and a V8 engine just takes up a lot of space. The only way you can really do it and get it done well is in a transvert. Well, it would be a longitudinal configuration. They've done inline six. In fact, there's still like the K1600 is an inline six. You had a couple of bikes back in the day that were inline sixes, but the V8 engine, it's kind of like the V4. Okay. The V4 is, okay, I'm going to get to another. Okay, let me stop right there. There's another reason to not have a V8 engine is you have to remember that a motorcycle, when you are turning, the tire is integral to the handling of that bike. It's curved, it's a U. And so because of that, you have a decreasing radius as you're going through a corner. With a motorcycle, the idea is that when you start to pour the power to a motorcycle, you have pulse and then pause, pulse and then pause. So for example, a dirt bike is really good if you have a single cylinder, because single cylinders are lightweight, which means complexity is really low, but you have one big power pulse and then a lot of time for that tire to rotate until the next power pulse. And it allows the tire to, in essence, recover and regain traction. With a V8, you definitely wouldn't have that. You've got a lot of power pulses, so you're hitting that tire a whole lot. So for outright power, might be better, but for overall handling, overall feel, it may not be as good. Now, there have been attempts to like marry up a couple of R1s engines, things like that. But realistically, you start getting into the weight. And the problem is that you can get a little bit ahead of yourself with displacement. You start creating more weight. Then you unbalance the chassis, which is another thing. Literally having too much weight to the back and center can be an issue. Weight being too low can sometimes be an issue for handling and transition. Would be great for a cruiser, but not great for a sport bike, unfortunately. Let's see. Sam saying one of the most interesting layouts I've seen was the heads are on the bottom. Oh yeah, there are a lot of inverted engines. Aircrafts do that a lot. Okay, so the reason for that in aircraft is it does a couple of things. One, it centralizes mass for the weight to be at the bottom. These are all dry sump engines. So there's recoveries in the valve, in what would be the cam covers for like a World War II engine. But to have that engine upside down, it also means that you can get to valve train. You don't have to be on top of the engine to work on it. I think there were, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were several manufacturers that had engines in that configuration. The Germans use that a lot. And a lot of it was for just basically maintenance. They're just a lot easier to work on. Modern Muscle saying, thank you, Professor B. I will say V4 bikes sound pretty badass. Any other bike engines that sound that aggressive? Yes. The R1 crossplane engine. Now, what you got to remember is the R1 crossplane is basically a V8 with 4 cylinders cut off of it. And if you've ever heard one, especially when they start revving, they sound like an old, like an old Can-Am engine. They sound amazing. They actually sound like small V8s when they're really piped up. So if you ever get a chance, listen to how those R1s sound. The R1 crossplane it's two things. One, it's incredibly smooth because you don't have the secondary imbalance that you do with an inline 4, like a flat plane 4, which is what most of them are. All of them are really. And so they're incredibly smooth, but they sound amazing when you get them going. It's kind of weird that I don't have an R1. Love my Gixxer 1000, don't get me wrong, but man, there is something to be said. I mean, the guys that like R1s love them and they won't ride anything else. And a lot of it has to do with the soundtrack. Oh, Sam saying the V3 is a very interesting layout. The V3, I mean, it's kind of curious that Honda is going to resurrect that layout. There's a there's something to be said though for the layout itself, and I'm guessing, you know, the proof will be in the pudding as far as how well that thing does on the street, especially with that electric supercharger. It should be good. Old Saabs had a V4. Yeah, there were a couple of cars that had V4s. There were a couple of cars that had V twins too. So a bunch of cool engine configurations, but you know, the manufacturers are going to go with what is the most efficient and what is the most power dense and what is going to fit the character that they want that particular bike to have. So 4 cylinders typically scream high at high RPMs. You've got V4s, which will also do that as well. A little bit more complex, a little bit more expensive to build. I'm not exactly sold on them being better overall, but I understand the geometry of them, so I get it. Some advantages there. Triples are good. The weird thing about triples is that you just don't see more of them, and I love triples. They're a really good marriage between a 4-cylinder and a twin, right? So you get a lot of the high RPM power that you would get out of a 4-cylinder, but you also get the punch and that you can, you know, stick bigger cylinders in the same area. So you get a bigger power punch with every cylinder for the size. So that's kind of cool. A lot of guys that like triples absolutely love them. And it's one of the reasons why the R9 is such a beloved engine, is because of the character that comes with that bike. Never get a chance to ride any motorcycle. Just make sure you get to, you know, throw a leg over one of the CP3 powered bikes. It's well worth it. Oh, Sam. Yeah, some of the old, yeah, it's, there were 2-stroke car, a lot of the old, that's a lot of older stuff, but yeah, there was a lot of like the little cars were 2-strokes. A lot of that had to do with just economy. You wanted the cheapest thing that would get you from point A to point B. So anyway, getting to, you know, some of the vehicles, some of the bikes from EICMA, I got to tell you, I wanted to get excited about them, but there's just a few bikes that I could really get worked up over. The Chinese manufacturers had a ton of representation, and we're spending a ton of money for ads too. I don't know if you guys saw that or noticed that, but if you were anywhere near a motorcycle video, chances are there was going to be some kind of an ad for Zontes. CF Moto had quite a few. All kinds of different things going on with those guys. So a lot of bikes coming from China, not necessarily to the States yet, but there's some that are out there, and I'll be surprised that, well, I'm looking forward to see how well they do. It's kind of funny when you start to get into some of these, some of the Chinese bikes. One of the more curious things about the Chinese bikes is, you know, they're a great value prop, right? They're really good in terms of what you get for the dollar that you spend. But the more I've been around them, or at least the more, like, I've sat on a couple and I try to get a feel for them, you get the sense that they're not quite ready for prime time in a lot of ways. It could be like a weird ergonomic thing. It could be something along the lines of like just how the plastics feel and how the rubber feels on the handlebars. There's a lot of that going on with some of the like the CF Motos that I've checked out. And it kind of bleeds into some of the other products that I've seen. And I don't know. I think that, again, you know, are they good? They're good, right? Yeah, of course they're good. I mean, it's not like these folks don't know how to make what they're making. They do. It's just that, you know, you get into the specifics of it and you get past the technology and how is the rest of this bike? What is it really like to ride? And for a lot of guys, they love it. There's a lot of Chinese manufacturers that are making bikes for people that aren't motorcycle guys too. Let me explain what that means. So a bike like the GSX-R 750, I'll tell you what, I'll illustrate this really well for you. Okay, you have casual motorcycle guy that gets on a motorcycle, wants to start it, wants to put on his cute clothes and go ride into the city and, you know, go try to pinch a butt or two, right? Then you have guys that actually work on their bikes. You have guys that actually get into these things, that will modify them themselves. They do their own maintenance. They ride them. They master the machine as best as their skill set will allow. That's what these do. That's that bike. Okay. So which is the right bike for you? I don't know. I mean, if you're styling and profiling, the Chinese bikes look pretty good, right? I mean, they've got the wings, they've got the colors, they've got the layout, all of that. But in general, they're going to be a little bit more difficult for a lot of guys to be able to gravitate towards, because they don't have the power to weight. They don't have all of the raw essence that a bike like this GSX-R 750, the ZX6, GSX-R 1000, and the rest of the crew, right? But what they are is they're sporty bikes, and they have a lot of technology, and they've got all the right parts in all the right places. And for a lot of guys, that's all that matters. And look, you say what you will, but I've been seeing a ton of 675 SSs from CF Moto on the road. And everybody I've talked to that's owned one or has ridden one, they like them. So, I try not to be, I'm not going to prejudge those machines. Again, the guys that own them, hold on to them. And the guys that like them, I mean, they ride them, they enjoy them. There are some guys that will buy them because they just want a good looking motorcycle. They're not planning on modifying it. They're not going to do their own maintenance. You got the guy that just, hey, listen, let's just say it like it is. At least the guy's on a motorcycle, or the girl is on a motorcycle, right? So at least be thankful that you got that going for you. So yeah, Sniper's saying Chinese bikes in general. Man, I'm telling you, there are a few bikes that are coming from Chinese manufacturers that will make you stand up and take notice, though. Sam saying, I'm looking forward to Harley's new model. I'm very curious to how it's going to go over with the true Harley people. Well, I'll put it to you like this. It won't go over well if it's not some kind of a cruiser. Well, let's be honest. The Pan America is doing great with people that like those kinds of bikes, but they're not doing great with Harley folks. The let's see, I almost call it the Rebel. The Nightster, I don't know if that thing can get out of its own way in terms of sales. You've got the Sportster S, which is actually doing fairly well, and the guys that buy that bike actually like it a lot. But there's no, look, I had heard that the new guy is going to be possibly bringing back the Street Fighter, aka the Bronx. The Bronx being the 900cc, and the Street Fighter being 150 horsepower version of the M8, or not the M8, the Rev Max that's in the Pan America and in the Sportster S. Will that happen? I don't know. What Harley Davidson needs to remember, or needs to realize, is that it is a motorcycle company, not an apparel company. And unfortunately, look, we just had the rally here in Galveston this past week, and there are a lot of Thunder Muffins running around, and I love them to death, but these guys were acting like they'd never ridden a motorcycle in their freaking lives, okay? And the funny thing about it is, when I went to go get the trailer to bring the 750 home, I was talking to the guy there, and I didn't realize, and I think I said this on the show on Saturday, I didn't realize that there were two different sizes of motorcycle trailers. And the U-Haul place, which is very near here that I went to, they had brought in as many of the big trailers as they could. That place was overrun with trailers. And I asked the guy, how many of these will you go through? And he said, all of them. He said, they're all reserved. I said, are you serious? He goes, oh yeah. So the thing is that you've got a really strong group. It's a really strong fan base for the brand of Harley. But they're a fan base for the brand of Harley, not for the motorcycles that they make. And so I think that's one of the bigger issues that Harley has. They need to get people excited about the motorcycles and about riding them and about different types of bikes. Because another thing about Harley is you got to remember their fan base or their buying base is aging out. And like every year that fan base ages in like an extra half year or a quarter year. It used to be average age was like, a long time ago, it was 32, and it's already out to like 50 something years old, like 58 years old, 59 or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's not the new guys. It's not the kids that are buying these Chinese bikes. And realistically, Harley should be in that game. Again, they make motorcycles. They need to quit worrying about making pirate apparel and start making motorcycles that kids are going to start to buy. And Harley guy needs to get over himself. Because if it ain't for the kids that are buying your brand, your beloved brand won't be along much after you are. Sam saying the days of kicking over and tinning and basically adjusting points. I think humanity was lost. They had the warning in the owner's manual telling you not to drink the battery. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Nobody is doing their own maintenance anymore. Nobody, it's rare now. A lot of guys don't. I say nobody, a lot of guys don't. But I can't really speak to that. I mean, I can tell you what the market looks like. I can tell you how the market is trending. And look, anything that keeps people on two wheels is good. There's a lot to be said for what you have to give up to get on a motorcycle. You've got to be willing to take risks. You've got to have a mindset that you are active, that you are adventurous. And a lot of people, well, they've kind of trended away from that. People get really locked into their phones. People get super locked into, a more of a sedentary style of life. And they're not doing this kind of stuff. And risk aversion is a real high thing. So it's one of these things that you just have to understand is that the modern person is just not, they're not wired for doing stuff like motorcycle stuff. And that's why I was saying, that's where the Chinese manufacturers really do come into play. A lot of people will call them disposable. They're not very expensive. And it's one of the reasons why, I got to be honest, I'm not really so sure that CF Moto coming out with the V4, I don't really know how well that's going to do, because the guys that would buy it would probably rather buy something else. And the guys that are buying Chinese motorcycles aren't really into super fast things. So it's a weird bike. I see them working though. It's exciting and right? But it's kind of like, you go to the zoo to see the lion, but just remember that the lion can see you too. And I think in this case, you've got a 200 horsepower motorcycle getting made by a Chinese manufacturer. That sucker can bite you pretty good. Look at what all it's taken to get a GSX-R 1000 as good as it is today. Honda Fireblade, look how good that bike is and how long it took to develop that type of a machine. You got a lot of folks that are going to be a little bit tentative about getting on a motorcycle making 200 horsepower that's put together with a bunch of Chinesium. Now, I'm not saying that, where the raw materials come from and all of that, but there's something to be said about quality control and the environment that it's made in. So will it be a big hit? I don't know. Will guys gravitate towards it that are in the market for 200 horsepower motorcycles? I don't know about that either, but it's soon to be found out. Time will tell. Skids is in. Good evening, B. Got the ball guy with the flex and the specs. I like it. DM is in. Good evening, chat and friends. Hello. So, DM, we are wholly deep into working on this thing. There you go. So, getting her all sorted out, getting her ready for the first line of minor mods, I guess you could say. Going to be holding off a little bit on the exhaust and tune and everything else. I've got a video coming up that's showing my onboarding procedures, some of the things that I've done. Yes, I am that guy. So I'll be talking about, yes, I do mark my pages and highlight my owner's manual. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. We'll also be talking about, so that video is on its way. Another video that I'm going to be filming here, probably tomorrow, I guess. In fact, I've already filmed it, and then I went ahead and just scrambled it because the cadence was really bad and it wasn't good. But for those of you guys that don't know, this is a California bike. And so I'm going to be going over some of the differences between a Cali bike and a 49 state bike. And there's quite a few differences, some that you might like immediately pick up on, and at least one difference that I didn't really quite expect between the two bikes. So, but nothing in terms of tuning or power or anything like that. California bikes are every bit, I mean, it's the same bike. It's just with a couple of different components and a relocation for the butterfly valve actuator, which was really weird because I opened up the tail of this bike and there was no actuator, and I went, what the hell? So, but yeah. Oh, well, I might as well show you guys since we're all hanging out here. So yeah, hopefully this is showing up. Getting her all cleaned up. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera. Is this looking good? We've got this thing cleaned up quite a bit, guys. This thing was dusty. The demo ride, I mean, it just got absolutely muddied up. But anyway, she's looking a whole lot better. This will be the first indication of something different. Charcoal canister, this whole system right here. I'll be showing you guys that in an upcoming video. But she is getting all kinds of cleaned up. Getting her looking good. We got that solo bracket coming for the exhaust because I just cannot stand having passenger pegs on a bike that's never going to see passengers. And I still think it's hysterical just how clean those rotors are. Anyway, that's a quick roll around of that bike. But it is coming along pretty well. The tires look like they should be here tomorrow. That's a good thing. The sprocket looks like, I don't know when it's going to get here. I think if I were a betting man, I'd say Friday. So I'll probably take the rear will go and I'll have the tire put on and bring it back. And whenever the sprocket comes in, I will get it all bolted up. She's saying, love the colorway. Yeah. So that's one thing I was going to, it is kind of weird to me. And Orange Crush and I were hanging out. We were talking about this, and there's a couple of weird things about this bike that I'm not really fully into understanding of. So if you look, hold on, it'd be kind of hard to see with this camera, but there is it doesn't say it, but it's the inventory tag from Suzuki. And it's kind of funny because it's a California bike. It's a Z code bike, which means it's in the traditional livery, which is the most desirable of the Gixxer liveries, right? And it's a 750. Why? It's weird that they would pull this particular bike. It's weird they would pull it to be a parade bike. It's one of these bikes that you could, if a dealership had it, they could charge full boat for it and full freight and prep. So there's a lot of money left on the table when they brought this thing in to be a parade bike. I just could not believe it. In fact, I really couldn't believe that it was a demo bike ever. I would never have signed off on a Z code being a demo bike only because I knew that's how you can make money. I figured I'd just have another colorway and it's a 750 and you ride it, it's a parade bike. So the fact that it has kind of a cool history and it's a Z code, I mean, I had to get it. Plus the deal was amazing. So, oh, DM saying, watched a More Mafia dyno vid on the R9, 103 horsepower stock, 119 uncorked. Second gear is a mess stock. Yes, it is. A 636 and 750 would stop a mud hole in the R9. Dude, let me tell you something. The R9 is a weird bird for me. In fact, this is another one that OC and I were talking about. Look, I don't really know how to express this the right way. The R9 is a really curious bike for me, and it'll dawn on me at some point what it reminds me of. But hear me out on this. It's got all the chops. It's got a fantastic chassis, fantastic frame, fantastic ergonomics, the whole bit. But it's got all the electronics. It's got all of this stuff, right? But the engine itself, but it doesn't have ram air. It's a sport bike with no ram air in the modern era. Like you go, oh, okay, well, it's got a TFT screen, quick shifter and all that. Yeah, but it doesn't have ram. Anyway, so there's that. And it's down on power for its displacement. Now, hear me out on this. I understand why a lot of people like the R9 in theory. But in practice, I can't get behind it because it's just not my cuppa, right? Like I want my sport bike to do sport bike stuff. I don't want to have a sensible engine on my sport bike. And look, I don't care what anybody says. When you start putting different swing arms on these bikes, you put the cams, you put the head gasket, the pit, you put everything in it that Two Wheel Dyno Works put into their bike. And it's making 140 or whatever horsepower at the rear tire. Think of the money you just sunk into this contraption when you could have had a very well sorted out GSXR 1000 even, for the kind of money that you're going to end up sinking into one of these bikes. Now, if you're a racer and you're racing in a specific class, whatever, but I'm sorry, but for that kind of money, you're going to be 19 large into this thing just in parts, not labor, and you ain't doing the work yourself on this, believe that. So, I mean, you're going to be so deep into this thing, and you could have just stumbled into a Kawasaki dealership, got the new ZX10 or an R1 or a Gixxer Thau and be way ahead of the game on this thing and have arguably a better bike. So I don't, he and I have been really talking about this bike a lot because listen, it was either 636 or R9. And I was going to get into this in a video at some point. Had there have been an R9 available, especially if it would have been the red and white one, I may have picked one up over the 636. But here's the problem, and you guys know this, right over there, that red bike, my dad's bike, 955cc triple, powers at 10.5, just like the R9. It's a little bit heavier, but it's also a little bit torqueier than the R9. If I want to ride an R9, I've got the best stand-in over here. And I can tell you that I get how good the R9 can be from a chassis point of view. We're not comparing chassis, just power. And there's just not enough excitement when it comes to that engine. Yamaha could have done better, but they didn't. And, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And as good as that bike is on tip in, man, you hammer the throttle on that thing and boom, it takes off. I rode the XSR, boys. I know how that engine gets down, and it accelerates quicker than you expect that it would, but it's not sport bike fast, if that makes any sense. It's not stirring the soul as you would maybe say, as a sport bike would. Let's see. Oh, what did I miss? All right, here we go. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, DM saying, miss the R6. I miss the R6. I miss the R6 a lot, but you know what? So when you talk to the Yamaha guys, one of the problems with the R6 is that that is a bike where Yamaha was losing money. To make the R6, you have to remember the R6 of the 600 class of bikes is arguably the best. Even comparing it to the 636, it would spin to about 15,500 RPM. But to do that, it took a lot of really expensive parts, and it was expensive parts that people just were not willing to buy for that bike, for that middleweight. That's one of the reasons why, outside of emissions, Yamaha had to take a look at it and go, look, man, we're in business to build motorcycles, and unfortunately, these things are costing us a lot more than they should, which is a shame because that is a phenomenal bike. Yeah, I love me some Yamahas too, man. I can't, I can't get past the idea that, look, and here's the thing, there are realities to this game, guys. I mean, you've got to pass emissions. There's regulations and all this other crap that you do have to pass. And that is a, it's a Euro 5 combination. So there's even that much more you got to deal with. But damn, I mean, you gotta understand that there's so much potential there for that bike to be really good. I know what they're doing with it, and I know why they're making this kind of bike, and I can really break this thing down. But at the end of the day, it's just whatever you're into. And unless you're doing, well, even if you're doing track day, God, I don't know. If you're doing track days and you're just a real casual rider, you're not wanting to get outside of B group, for example, which is not to say anything bad. B group, there's a lot of fast guys in B group. But A group is going to be filled up with guys on 636s, GSXR 750. Any of the leader bikes will be showing up in A group. R9s, I'm not saying you can't compete. You certainly can, but you're going to have to outride a lot of guys on that R9. A really good rider on an R9 will do well. A good rider on a 636 will do really well. Does that make sense? I hope that it does. It's just kind of a weird way to explain it, but I just can't, I just cannot get worked up. Look, here's the thing. The R9 is hard to stomach because it's a triple and all that. The R9 is hard to stomach when you had the Triumph 765, the Moto 2 bike, right? It's hard to, okay, I can't really accept the R9 when Triumph has already done this, and they did it way better than the R9, arguably. So, I mean, look, there's a reason why those bikes command the prices that they do now, and they haven't been made for a while. And they're freaking gorgeous to look at. DM saying the R9 is just a motorcycle street bike that looks like a hyper bike. It is a street bike. Indeed, it is. Good way to put it. Matter of fact, that's kind of it's weird. It's like a distant cousin, or it's related to the Chinese bikes, where these are not race bikes. These are not race bred bikes. These are street bikes for a street rider. The R9 is a street bike, maybe for a bit more accomplished rider, somebody that's going to be a bit more aggressive, that wants the Japanese, quality and doesn't mind paying for it. But I got to tell you, it's it just for a sport bike guy, especially those of us that are aggressive riders that really do appreciate, corner exit, diving into corners and all of that. The R9 is good. It's everything that happens after that you're just kind of left a little bit wanting for that bike. Grab an early upshift, I guess. That's how you ride those bikes. Oh, DM say the R9 tuned is 70 torque. Yeah. I mean, it's the torque is definitely there. And look, listen, gear for gear, that thing has got a ton of punch. The MT-09, the XSR 900, just ride one of those things, you're like, wow, this thing is really strong. But they run kind of like an older Ducati. There's a lot of initial hit, like, wow, this is great. And then you just got to grab another gear really quickly because once that initial hit's done, there's really not a lot left. Yeah, even Skid saying I'd rather have the NT09. Yeah. Never saying it's trash. Don't kid yourself. The R6 Yamaha is best sport bike, and they discontinued it. Yeah, they did. Unfortunately, they had to. Skid's not liking the R9. It's not go ride your cruiser. Look, here's the thing. All of us, when you're getting into these different kinds of bikes, it's kind of funny because you've got guys that'll look at the R9 and go, man, that is a great compromise. That's a good bike. It's a bigger bike frame wise. I could really have a good time with that bike. And then you get it. So here's the thing. I've talked to a couple of guys that have R9s. One of them was, just kind of back and forth in the comments briefly. And one of them's looking to get rid of it for a 636. And one of the reasons for that was, the R9 is great from a technical standpoint, but it's not really all that great when it comes to just being an exciting bike to ride. And when you're on one of these bikes and you're trying to just enjoy motorcycling, you got to pick what kind of bike you're on. And, it's when you're on something that just doesn't get you all worked up, that's where a lot of guys. So anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is a lot of guys bought that bike because of an idea that they had about it, and that the bike didn't really live up to that expectation. Skids, will a faired Honda Hornet CB750 see the light of day? Probably no, but there is, I think, a case to be made that if the new, whatever they're calling it, the CB1000, whatever it is, the new bike that's based off the Hornet 1000, that retro bike, there's a case to be made. If that bike does well, there may potentially be an argument that, a CB 750 variant would work well. But that's another bike, man. The Hornet 750 is a weird one for me because it needs to have that fairing. It needs to be a sport bike because parallel twin making that kind of power with that bike's personality, that's where it would get fun. Of the, how do you call them? I mean, it's a sport naked, but the CB750s, to me, it just gave off a lot of like a marriage between a hyper motard and a sport utility bike. There was a lot of that kind of essence going on with it. It has a very much a dirt bike type feel to it, believe it or not, when you're riding it. But it wanted to rev. It wanted to, how do I say this? It wanted to be on the right-hand side of the tack. Whereas something like the GSX-8S, if I can get the words out, that bike, it wanted to be on the left-hand side of the tack. And it was just kind of weird riding the two back to back. You got the sense that the 750, it was kind of in the wrong chassis. I don't know. DMC B, you cherry picked the sport bike market well, loving your garage. Yeah. Seems as though I have. They say, Sniper, calm down. What'd you say, Sniper? Oh. Yeah. Easy there, Snipes. But yeah, I'll tell you this, the funny thing about these, the fleet is, if you notice, I'm trending a little bit more towards the middleweights. And a lot of that has to do with my background being more at T Hill, which is my home track, but being up in the mountains, big power didn't really help you a lot. And having something small that handled really well, like an R6 675 from Triumph, obviously the R6 from Yamaha, the 636 when it was first coming out from Kawasaki, obviously my GSX-R 750, GSX-R 600. All of the smaller bikes always just handled really well. We're up in the mountains, and that's really what I would gravitate towards. Lots of technical stuff, not necessarily blasting at 170, 180 miles an hour. But the more that I ride my GSX-R 1000, the more that I'm more inclined to just hold on to that 1000. And that's the bike that I will usually grab the keys to if I'm going to go for a quick blast. The Bonneville is great, but that's really more for me and my wife. My dad's bike's great, but the problem with that bike is that I'm a little bit worried that it's going to start if I stop. It needs a new battery for sure. But it's kind of funny that when you get off of, and I guess this is, I'm going way around my ass, gets my elbow. Here's the funny thing. GSX-R 750, this is one of the things I'm going to be talking about in an upcoming video, especially once it's all gussied up and it's not, all blown apart. I love leader bikes now. I've grown to where I'm more comfortable, oddly enough, with a leader bike than I am in many cases with a middleweight. So that's weird, right? But here's the strange thing. A lot of guys, because I'm going to be doing the comparisons, OC and I are going to be doing some roll racing with the 750 versus the 636, which is nothing that we don't already do with the thousands, by the way. So this is nothing new for us, but it'll be new because we're both going to be on middleweights, and he hadn't been on a middleweight in forever. But the funny thing is that this bike, this one right there, that one, you know what's weird about this 750? And it's something that dawned on me when I was on that ride, that when I went, hey guys, this is my bike. When I was riding it in that moment, keep in mind, I hadn't really had a chance to ride this bike outside of just doing the little parade lap that we did, the demo ride. What's weird is how good this 750 runs. And I noticed straight away, because of the riding position, number one, the size of the thing, how it sounded, just how good they sound, but how good it runs. It was so close to the CBR 1000 that I am not kidding. If there was any way to grab the keys to that 1000, because it doesn't have a quick shifter and it's a 25, so it's supposed to be making 192 horsepower. Just how close this bike felt to that bike. And I don't just mean like a thrust thing. I mean, it was like per gear, the 750 felt very similar to the CBR 1000. So, it's kind of one of those weird things where I'm just going, the 750 is really good. And there's a couple of modifications, and I've talked about this a couple of times. There's a couple of modifications with this bike that I just don't want to do to it because I'm afraid it's going to ruin it. One of them is the quick shifter. And, I don't want to, well, there's really only one that I was afraid was going to hurt it. And that's the quick shifter. It's so slick. It's so easy to ride. The shifting is very, very, very short. Just click, click, click. So, I don't know. I'm kind of a Suzuki guy at heart anyway. So, but I will say this, between the two bikes, God, they're so different. And this is the thing. You can literally have both of them in your garage and it's a completely different riding experience. GSX-R 750 versus the 636. But anyway, we're going to run them stock 750 versus modded 636. And then as this thing gets its spa treatments, then we're going to put them up against each other at that point. DM saying I might be lurking in wait for B636 when he's done. Yeah, it'll be set up nice, man. I will let you know when that time comes. Because I got to say, the 750 is just so good. I got to say, the 636, if you're into handling, man, I mean, holy shnikes. The 636, look, and here's the other thing. both of them are so different, the 750 and the 636, that when you start talking one versus the other, it's not a fair comparison. Because you can really dive deep into which one you feel is better. But okay, so which one's better already, right? Handling 636. Stock for stock, though, GSXR 750. It took a long time to get the 636 where it is now, and a lot of really frustrating evenings and days when I could have been doing something completely else, getting super frustrated with that bike because I just could not get the suspension sorted out. I finally did. But man, sakes alive, this thing, you just get on it and you ride it. You put a set of S22s on a GSXR 750, you turn the key, fire it up, let it warm up, boom, there you go, right? The other thing, though, is, okay, so 636 for the win there. What about outright speed, fast? Which one's faster? 750 is. It's just more powerful in general as far as making torque, but the 636, the way that it sits now, give the 750 a pretty good run for its money, but it's going to do it in a different kind of way. It makes its power differently than the 750. So it's real difficult to get on one, get off of another and say, that's the one, it's better. You can't. You cannot do that because they're so different that it's going to depend exactly only on what you value between the two bikes, that you like one more than the other. DM saying, B, I'm sure if you get Froggy, there's an aim system tech for it. Well, that's the thing. I haven't looked into that for the 750. We know there's one for the 1000 though, and that's the thing. That X-Star bike is my bike. That is my bike, and I may end up doing something like that for that bike. But here's the thing: the 750 is also my bike. Okay, the 636 is the channel's bike, but I'm keeping it around because I want to. We've got to do some comparisons, and it wouldn't be right to have them both and not put them head to head. But the 750 is me. This is the bike that I've got so many miles underneath me on a GSXR 750. I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough to get another 25 Z code. It's got a cool history behind it, which I kind of like history when it comes to stuff like this. So yeah, we're going to keep this one around. We got one of the lights up here keeps doing this bling bling thing. Sniper saying you got to take the 636 to the track. There is a track, and I need to get a new set of leathers, but there is a short track that the 636 would do really well on, and I kind of do want to get that bike on track. I'm saying, and the 750, yes. I'd like to get, the thing is I start doing track days and I get really into doing track days. I love doing track days. I would like, but they get really expensive because you will cook through tires doing track days. I was very fortunate at a time where I was getting free tires, and it was just load the bike up, get down there, run. In fact, I used to do my own tires at the shop, and I wasn't very good at it, but I could do it. And but yeah, I mean, we were getting, a lot of free stuff back then. And so getting the bikes onto track would be a riot for sure. DM saying, I can tell the 750 aren't going anywhere. Yeah, listen, there's a certain thing about the 750 with me that I just, man, it's such a core part of me and my motorcycling journey, right? That for me to not have a 750, I've always regretted getting rid of my 06. I had a red and black 06 GSXR 600 with the GSXR 750 forks and GSXR 750 engine with the GSXR 600 exhaust cam. And that bike put down 131 or 132 with just a power commander and Yoshimura exhaust. And that was my bike. That was Kikoku, which is Japanese for prostitute. That was Kikoku. That was Kik. And what I did is that was my bike. That was my bike for the mountains. That was my bike for T Hill. And when I came back to Texas, I had to sell it. And the guy that bought it loved that bike. I mean, he still, I think, rides it to this day. Bike's probably got 100,000 miles on it. And it's probably half of that's track use. Probably put about 15 stators on it since then too. But anyway, I always kind of regretted getting rid of that bike. And so the way that things worked out, me getting this bike back again with a cool story. I mean, dude, how can I resist, right? So I'm saying it's worth it. Yes, it is. Rightful Tilt saying, every time I sell the 750, I always regret it soon after and buy another a couple of years later. I'm my third at 33 years old. Man, I am on my this is my third also. And I don't see, here's the thing. Everybody that has ever had a 750 ends up getting another one if they get rid of it. It's kind of funny. It's Kikoku Ni. Yes, it is. Very well. Yes. The thing is that everybody that gets a 750 at some point, they always end up getting another one. There's never anybody that has had a 750 and then goes, God, just that bike. Nobody does that with the 750. Here's the other weird thing. Or it could be Kikoku Kai. But in other words, new and improved or new. But the thing is that you'll like leader bikes. Okay, check this out. This is the weird part. This is where GSXR 750 has, it's kind of weird. Okay, but just hear me out on this. It's rare to hear anybody say, I really miss my CBR 600, right? Especially if they have if they had a CBR 600 and now they have a CBR 1000. Okay. Just kind of follow that logic through. It's super rare for anybody to ever say that they don't miss their 750, even if they have a GSXR 1000. In fact, they will, a lot of times, a lot of guys fall back to a 750. It's not like if you ever look up any of the journalists, like what do journalists ride? What are their personal bikes? Almost, if they're track guys, if they're big into hitting canyons, B roads, C roads, whatever, GSXR 750 is their personal bike. But the weird thing is you'll have guys that'll go GSXR 750 R1. They'll carry R1 for a while, and then for whatever weird reason, they fall back into GSXR 750. That's rare because a lot of times the guys that buy the R1s are buying it for a really specific reason, the sound, the smoothness, and all this other stuff. But that sounded healthy. But the thing is that they find out, or it'll be like they go from GSXR 750 to GSXR 1000, kit the 1000 out like crazy, and they find out that they can't really use the power of the 1000. They're a little bit spooked by it. They don't feel comfortable with that level of power underneath them. Their ability to judge speed is maybe not as good as one person from the next, but the 750 is as exciting as 1000cc bike, realistically, when we're talking about power output. Because again, from a feel standpoint, we're not talking about empirical numbers here. We're just talking about how does it feel to ride the thing? Feels like a CBR 1000. And weirdly close to a CBR 1000 too. And so, what's up, OC? What are you doing, man? And saying kind of what we were talking about, the Punisher. Jesus Christ. That's what Smoking Hot calls my dick. Okay, what do we got here? I have to admit the GSXR 1000 and the 750 feel better. For some weird reason, the R9 feels like a 1200 in size, but not in weight. Chris say, by the way, I rock, bro. Oh, show. Dude, you know what's crazy? Because so OC was able to get onto an R9 today, and I'd never sat on one. I don't think you had either. And just saying it was weird, like the dimensions of it felt like bigger, right? It's just a bigger, and I'd heard that about the R9, that it is just a bigger version of a motorcycle. Like it's like a blown up middleweight. But I've never sat on one. I don't have any experience with it, so it's kind of interesting to hear it from your perspective, because again, I've never ridden one, but the guys that I've talked to that have had experience with that bike, again, it just didn't scratch that itch. It's not sport bike enough in its execution versus in its appearance. Oh, by the way, you may not have seen it yet, but here's where the 750 is right now. So, yep. Got her blown apart a little bit. Doing a little bit of filming earlier. That other video is going to post probably, I would say sometime around, I don't know, sometime in the morning, I'm guessing. By the way, I rock, bro. Love it. DM's in saying Gixxers are so good, but I can't part with my R1. See, that's the thing. I cannot believe I don't have an R1. In fact, I think the R1 at the dealership sold, by the way. But I love the Gixxers. I need another one. I had a GSXR 600, but I think the 750 is where it's at. I can tell you for sure, man. You know, the weird thing is that the 750 is so good, and it fits right into a slot, right? Like it really is. It's a weird way to put it, but and it's not that it's the, you know, a lot. So I don't want to. They'll say, look, the 750, it's a good in between a 600 and 1,000. It's not like that anymore. It's not like that. It's more like it's a really good bike. See, it used to be that it was like that back when leader bikes weren't making 200 horsepower, 180 at the rear tire. They were more like, 165, right? Maybe 155 with like the CBRs, and my 750 made 130. So yeah, it was literally right in the middle of, say, 105, 130, 160, right? That's a pretty easy cadence to follow. The 750s, obviously with the gearing and all the rest of the stuff, they were a handful for guys if you're going up against certain, not all, but certain leader bikes, but CBR 600 for sure. Now, though, the leader bikes are just in a different stratosphere, man. You've got to have a quick shifter. You've got to have the nannies now with all of the power that these bikes make. Not saying that you're going to employ the nannies, and not saying that you can't ride them without a quick shifter, but realistically speaking, these technologies exist and they work exceptionally well with the high horsepower platforms. But the 750 is kind of weird because it hasn't changed. And a lot of guys like that. It's a familiar, it's a constant, and it's something that is just really that good. And if you get away from it and you think, well, the grass is greener like a 636, man, the handling is addictive on the 636. It is the siren song of that bike. And again, so to try to compare another motorcycle to the 636, you can't. In terms of handling, the 636 is just that good. The front end feel is just that good, but that's what it is for. The 750 is to be a motorcycle. And I think that for a lot of guys, they're never going to get past the idea that something is better than the 750. After they've gone away from it, they almost always come back. Let's see. Oh, DM, if that R7 was like the 99, dude, are you okay? Talk about a good looking motorcycle. I'm sorry, but that new R7 in the red and white livery is something to behold. DMs, after all, I do still have 2 kidneys, man. I know that back in the day that, what kind of power those bikes are making, and the R7, when you kit them out, is really good. And that is going to be the bike, I think, for Moto 3, right? Isn't that the new engine for Moto 3? I think it is. And that thing kitted out makes about 80 horsepower. So to the rear tire, I mean, you can make a number with those things. But man, you talk about a good looking bike. I'm right there with you. That from just a fun, really good handling bike would be really good. Ride Full Tilt saying, what new bike is the step up from the 750 without being 200 horsepower? It's hard to find one now. It used to be the CBR 1000. Well, you can still make a play for that, but here's the problem with the CBR. It's also kind of the problem with the new R1, really any of these bikes, probably the new Gixxer Thal, is the nannies. They're all proactive instead of reactive nannies. And so they limit the throttle in certain scenarios. They don't react. They just say, no, we're just not going to give it to you to begin with. So what would be a good one? Let me think about that for a minute. There's not one, unfortunately. Look, let me put it to you in this term. We're talking about middleweights. The 750 is going to be the most powerful middleweight, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to get the next step up, you've got to go leader bike to really have a step up. I would say the next step up. Let's say you've got a kitted out GSXR 750. The next step up would be a GSXR 1000, but leave it stock. And you would be putting down somewhere around 15 to 20 more horsepower to the rear tire with a chunk more torque, and just leave the bike alone. Get your suspension set up however is the best for you, but just don't ever do anything with it and leave it like that. That would be the next step up. And then the sky's the limit from there as far as how fast you want to go. Ride Full Tilt base CBR 1000 RR has 185 at the flywheel. It does. At the rear tire, I want to say it's more than that now. It's 190, or is it 190 or is it 185? I can't remember. Anyway, it's more than what it was. And the more than what it was bike is putting down somewhere in the neighborhood. I want to say, let's call it 155 at the rear tire. It's not like crazy power. But remember though, the CBR 1000 is a little bike. The CBR 1000 is the size of a GSXR 750. And it doesn't weigh much more than a 750 either. And the Gixxer 750, whether it's California bike or the non-Cali bike, they're both listed at 419 pounds. The CBR 1000 is listed at 435. Yeah, 435. So 420 versus 435, there's really no difference. They have basically the same wheelbase. So the CBR 1000, I used to always say this back in the day, the CBR 1000 is the best middleweight money can buy. And people go, well, it's not a middleweight, it's a 1000cc bike. And it's like, yeah, but it's really not. Like, it's not 1000cc the way that a Gixxer Thal is 1000cc or a ZX10 is 1000cc. Ride Full Tilt's liking the red and white 26. Yeah, I am a little bit jealous. I love the red and white R1s, man. They look so freaking good. Summer's asking, the 750 is not smoother in corners than the 636 on 22s. It's not a smoothness thing. It's a feel thing. It's how they set up into corners, how they drop in. There's a geometry difference between the two bikes, factory for factory. But again, remember, and this is a big thing you got to remember, the 636 that I've spent an exhaustive amount of time getting that suspension sorted out. I mean, an annoying amount of time. And it is really, 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 really good. It's the best handling motorcycle I have ever ridden. Period, like full stop. But just because it's really good at that doesn't mean that it wins the argument. The 750's got it beat in smoothness. The 750's got it beat. This one has it beat, I would say, in corner exit, where my other 750 didn't. I don't know why this bike runs as good as it does. Weird. But anyway, it's just they're so different that they're so hard to compare, because they go about life completely different. Look, I've got the least technologically advanced middleweight right here versus the most technologically advanced middleweight right back over there. They're as far apart as you can get on the bookshelf from each other from a technical standpoint. OC saying, unfortunately, the next step up is the discontinued V2, the Testastrutta V2. Man, what a bummer. You know, that's a bike at 150 horsepower. I think you're right about that. That would be, I guess, the next logical step up from, say, a GSXR 750. More torque. It's a 955cc V twin. Lots of initial torque out of that bike. It'll walk on a 750, no problem, stock for stock. Now, I don't know if what gear one bike is in versus the next or whatever, but gear for gear, the Testastrutta bike is super good. And either way, you're talking about the 959 or you're talking about the V2 Panigale, with either way with the Testastrutta engine. It just sucks that bike's not available anymore. And I think that for me, Ducati lost a lot of Ducati with me when they went away from Testastrutta, went with the new spring valve engine. I just, for some reason, I just get it in my head. I'm thinking, man, could you convert the Testastrutta to springs, and could you do something? I don't know, anything. Because of the Ducatis, to me, I've come, you know, I almost bought one of those. I don't want to be that guy, but there was a lot of gravity for that bike for me. I've got a bit of a history with my RC51 with V-twins. And the only thing that was keeping me really from taking the Testastrutta bike seriously was the prospect of a GSXR 1000. So, you know, is it a better bike? I don't know about that, but to get better than the 750 is going to take something like that. And look, if that bike doesn't make you a Ducatista, then I don't know what bike would. Because I don't think that I just really don't feel like the new Panigale is going to, damn it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just say this about the new Ducati. You feel like it's been built to a price point. Ducatis are not supposed to be that way. Ducati is supposed to be a Ducati the way that, you know what you're spending your money on. Or you might be overspending for the performance envelope, but you're spending the money for a different type of feel, a different type of performance envelope, right? So you spend the extra monies for the different kind of bike. But with the new V2, it might be great, super light, technology, I get all that, right? But it ain't Ducati enough for me, man. A Ducati with spring valves? Come on, man. I need that Desmotronic stuff, man. It's got to be Ducati to be a Ducati. And I just don't think it's Ducati enough for me. Oh, Sniper's saying he's, oh, wait. Oh, right full tilt. Yeah, 189 at the crank. Yeah, that's what the new one is. And it's a good bike, man. I mean, I really do. Listen, if that bike, let me tell you something, all BS and aside, fellas, if the CBR 1000 that I rode that did not have a quick shifter, if that bike, instead of being 17.5, if that bike were more like 15.5, and I know it sounds like a stretch, but if that bike were checking in at that number, I may have bought it just to have a CBR 1000, because getting started, that was the leader bike that I got started on, and they always fit me so well. So, and I really like that bike. A right full tilt. The base CBR might be the ticket if it has traction control and quick shifter. You have to option it with the quick shifter, but you can get it with that. Oh, Snipers. Oh, because the suspension on the 636, because I'm 200 pounds. That's true. And a lot of it has to do with my weight. But remember, that's the 636. This girl right here behind me, yeah, I'm 200 pounds. I get on this thing and I'm barely even stressing the suspension on this bike. And so that's another thing. look, again, and we're going to get into the comparisons between the two bikes at some point, but man, I got to tell you, look, the 636 is awesome, albeit weird with the SFF forks and all of that. Again, it took me a hot minute to get it sorted out, but I got it sorted out and it's really good. This thing, I didn't have to touch anything on the other bike. I just got on it, put a set of 22s on it. Hell, even on the 016s, I was ripping. But I put a set of 22s on it and I was really going good. I'll give you one better. At the Miller S-turn that we go with our favorite, the Sentinels, right? The two stop signs. Doing the Sentinel S-turn, when we are on the 636, guys, we're coming into that thing. I'll address it because, I'll always address them hot. Get it into decel, trail brake so you guys can see me trail braking, because I want you guys, if you're out there riding, I want you to be able to practice this kind of stuff on your own. Get used to trail braking, get used to closing distances and all that kind of good stuff. You'll see me trail brake. You'll see me maybe get to maintenance throttle, and I'll talk you guys through that. And then I go power, power, power on exit. If I'm on the 636, I carry about a mile an hour or two more than I will on the GSX-R 1000. I was covering the same mile an hour, if not one more, with this bike sitting behind me, not my other one, but this one on the 016s. So it's right there with the 636. It just has a little bit different characteristics, and we're going to get that sorted out once we get the tires on it. DM said, I think I like the mechanical feel over the numbness of an electronic feel. GSX-R 750 has more of an old school mechanical feel. You feel more connected and don't need or want rider aids. I will say this. The thing about the 750 that makes it to where you don't really want rider aids is just how well the whole thing seems to work as a combination. The way the clutch feels, the way that the shifter feels, the throttle response on blip downshifts, the way that the bike just in general reacts with really quick upshifts as you're fanning the thing through the gears. At some point, a quick shifter is better. I get that. But for every other bit of time, unless you're roll racing the thing, you won't notice not having a quick shifter. And there's a certain feel that you get with a really good shifter and a really strong middleweight. Well, it's the strongest middleweight with the 750. It's just so good that, it does kind of blur the lines a little bit between middleweight and an entry-level leader bike. Ride Full Tilt's got a good question. Where do you have your foot pegs on the 750? I'm thinking of lowering from the highest stock. You're 6'2". What's your inseam at 6'2"? Are you long torso or are you long legs or just split? Because for me, I am just shy of 6 feet tall and I have a 32-inch inseam and I am on the stock set. So for me, I'm sitting at, it's, hang on, I'll show you real quick. If this shows up, I am all the way up on mine. So I'm up and forward. And you've got a position here, here, and here. So the L kind of goes backwards like that. Hopefully that's showing up on camera. But I'm in the stock position, which is up and forward. And I really like that position on my 750. DM say if you put a shifter on it, look at H&M. Good call. Yeah, I don't know. This one, I ain't no telling what's going to end up happening with this one. I'll tell you what, I really like this bike already. But guys, oh man, I just noticed we are almost at an hour and a half. I have got to wrap it up, get back to work. I got to get up early as hell in the morning. So listen, guys, appreciate each and every one of you guys. Be on the lookout. I've got the onboarding kind of video coming up tomorrow morning. And then I'm going to be going over this bike and I'm going to be showing you all the differences between a California bike and a 49 state bike. It's going to be kind of a quick video, but hopefully in the process of that, we'll have some new parts getting on this bike. We've got the solo hanger coming on this thing. At some point, the tail tidy will be here. Mirror block offs will get here. And then what else? The sprocket's going to get here, and the tires are showing up tomorrow. So we got a lot of stuff going on. But I am going to be showing you guys the differences between my Cali bike and a 49 state bike, just because there's some guys that are going, there's a difference. Yes, there's a big difference. Let's say a big difference, several little differences. But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know, especially during the holiday season. Guys, there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of dudes suffering a little bit in silence. Just because you see a big smile doesn't mean that there's something going on, or there's not something going on behind those eyes. Give everybody the grace that they deserve, especially this time of year. And with that, I'm going to hopefully catch you guys on the next one. Y'all take it easy.